Alright, so to answer everyone's question, what would be the #1 airbrush that I would recommend to anyone, beginner or advanced, would be the Iwata Eclipse HPCS with a moisture trap and a quick connect.
This is the Iwata Eclipse HPCS, and I've actually been using this exact airbrush for 17 years, and it still looks pretty good for being that old and used more than any other airbrush in my entire lineup. The chrome from the factory at Iwata is just top notch. It's smooth. The only place where it's actually coming out is right where I cleaned it all the time, right around the edges. And since I run a brush inside the cup all the time to clean it really well, you'll see that it's kind of wore some of the chrome in there out. But this in no way has changed the performance of this airbrush, and I've only had to change the needle and the nozzle a couple times, and that's just because I'm rough with it. This airbrush will run you around $170, give or take. Due to inflation, it's hard to put a price on any airbrush nowadays, but that's a pretty good deal for something that's one of the best airbrushes I own. It's worth every penny. This airbrush has a .35 needle nozzle, so that means that it can do the fine details, but it also can run a little thicker paint through it, which is actually what I like about it. It's very versatile. I can use it for almost anything. I can run metallic paint through this. I can run automotive. I can run water-based. I can use it all, and that's really the reason I bought the Iwata Eclipse to begin with. And if you notice my little moisture trap here at the bottom of my airbrush, I highly recommend you get one of these for your airbrush. Any water in your project will run it. It'll cause it to blow out, so this is just another added protection against it. I also have a quick connect at the bottom, and that's because I love quick connects. It's faster to change out your airbrushes. I can zip it off real quick when I'm cleaning. It's just these two things I highly recommend you get for your airbrush. So if someone said I can only recommend one airbrush and one airbrush only, it would be the Iwata Eclipse. Hands down the best airbrush. I haven't heard anyone that's ever owned one say they hated it and wish they never got it, like I have about other airbrushes. I love the nozzle setup on this airbrush. If you take the nozzle, it simply, instead of screwing it in, it just press fits right there. It machine fits perfectly. I want to be careful not to drop this since it's small. But then you just put your cap back on. Once you screw this back on, it's ready to go. As long as that's seated in correctly, you'll have zero problems.
Alright, the Iwata Eclipse. This one here can do thicker paints. Right into the dots, did a nice job. Probably could turn this pressure down and go even finer. Just a little bit better, a little more even, smooth than the Amazon. You can definitely feel the quality. I feel a little more confident in this one too because I do use this one all the time. The Amazon one will work, but I can tell you right now this one hands down just feels a little bit better and is a lot smoother lines. So alright, but I'm not going to stop at just the overall airbrush I would recommend. If you are a illustrator artist that is doing portraits and like animals, like high detail, you need all those textures and you need the fine lines constantly, then I would probably go with something that's built for you, which is the custom Microns. They have different ones. This one obviously would do the trick. It does hairline, and it's a lot more precise, a lot less air at the nozzle, which when you're getting in there close, it's a lot easier not to blow out. So I would definitely recommend this for that type of art.
This one is a lot higher on the price point, running around $470, but for good reason. This is the Iwata Custom Micron C dual action airbrush. This is one of the most high detailed airbrushes. If you're doing photorealism or you're doing portraits or anything of high detail and texture, this is the airbrush for you. Just skip right onto this airbrush. This is the one you need to start with. It features a 0.23 millimeter nozzle, which gives it that high detail line that you need. So you'll run this pressure a little lower. You'll also run a little thinner on your paint. I love the cap on this airbrush. It's got a hole there where you just spray your paint right in, but it still has that lip to keep the paint from spilling. This is a great idea. I love this. I wish all airbrushes were like this one. And it also features a larger 1.3 ounce cup, just like the other airbrushes. And it also has a larger orifice for the paint to be fed into the needle and nozzle. Once again, compared to the Iwata Eclipse. And if you take the end off, you can see just how fine the threads are on each adjustment. There's so much more adjustment here than a regular airbrush. And I absolutely love the handle on this airbrush. It features the needle stop. It's got fine, smooth adjustments. Keeps you from pulling the trigger back too far.
Another cool thing is the custom Micron comes in a really cool, heavy-duty steel carrying case. And I tell you what, this thing keeps it really safe. It looks real professional. Mine's really dirty. I've had it for 5, 6, maybe even 7 years, and it stays here in my shop, but it keeps it protected. Being a $470 airbrush, you probably want something like this. I just put their sticker on the front here, but it just comes in the solid red with a little bit metallic in it. It's pretty cool. All right, let's start with circles. Boy, you sure can get fine. Pull some lines. Surprising how big those lines can actually get, though. God. Oh my gosh. Tip's getting a little bit of tip dry. I probably can lower the pressure even more than the other brushes. That's probably what's throwing me off. Wow. A lot smoother lines. I mean, these lines right in here, there's hands down the smoothest lines. You just barely pull back. I tell you, it's got a sensitive trigger in a way. Wow, that's a smooth airbrush. Now I already know this because I've used it many times. Anytime I'm doing a skull and I need to do like the cracks down it, I'll use this one because it just does a better job. Got to be aware of tip dry. I'm using urethane paints on this. Fun airbrush. I don't get it out very often. And yet, there's still the artist that doesn't know where they are in all of this. They don't know if they want to go and make the big leap to buying that $400, even that $100 airbrush. That's just too big of a jump for them. Then if I were going to say just to get started, because you need to get started, the only way to get better is to get started, go ahead and buy that Amazon airbrush. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. I was able to spray some really nice lines. I believe I can lay out almost anything. It would take me a little more time. I'd probably have to be, I don't know, a little bit more on the stencil side with these. But honestly, for doing like model art, I don't see anything wrong with this Master airbrush. I really don't. I feel like it would do just fine. And coming in the kit with all the different needles and nozzles, it gives you a little bit of a selection there to get started. I'd say whether than not starting because you can't afford to, go ahead and start with the Master. It's fine. You can always upgrade to the Iwata once you know you love it, which I'm pretty sure you will because I know I fell in love with it right away.
What's cool about this airbrush is it actually comes in a kit, which I kind of like that feature. It has a 0.2, a 0.3, and a 0.5 millimeter needle, and it also has the nozzles to interchange with them, which is a nice feature to have. It also has a 1/3 ounce cup, which isn't a bad size. The only thing I don't like about the nozzles is it's not quite like the Iwata Eclipse, which is my favorite nozzle, which is machined to fit to where it press fits in. This one here, you actually have to screw in and out. One of the better features of this airbrush, which is pretty impressive, you usually see it in the Iwata custom Microns, is the needle stop. When you dual action airbrush, you push down for air and you pull back for the fluid. That stop in the back, you turn it, you can adjust it to where it'll stop that needle from coming back too far and allowing too much fluid. Another feature that's pretty cool is the cutout on the back, so you can get to the nut that tightens down the needle. And I'm also pretty impressed that it has the very similar orifice for the paint to go in as the custom Micron. Check it out compared to an Eclipse. Never had an issue with my Eclipse, but this is kind of a cool feature for a low-end airbrush. One of the downsides of this airbrush, and it's a big one for me, it may not be for you, is the way this nozzle actually has to come out. Is you actually have to use a little wrench on it, and that's pretty common. I mean, even the Microns can do that, but I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I know that can make it interchangeable, but at the same time, I'm not a big fan of it because whenever I need to clean it, I have to use this wrench every time, and it's just more steps and more time. So this is a big thing for me. It may not be for you, but look how small that is. It'd be pretty easy to lose that too, but that's just my pet peeve. It may not even matter to you. Still a good buy for 40 bucks. Another downside on this cheaper airbrush, which is to be expected, is actually the action. The action itself is when you press down and pull back. How smooth is it? Well, compared to the Iwata Eclipse or any of the Iwatas, the Badger, or any of the other airbrushes in this video that are around the $100 to $400 range, feel a little smoother. This one feels a little bit, I don't know, rough. It's got a few catches. But like I was saying, it's a $40 airbrush, not a $400 airbrush. So maybe we can look past that. Depends on your what you need it for. If you're doing fine detail all the time, I wouldn't want that. But if I'm just airbrushing a broad area, it'd be fine. Now to test out this $40 airbrush. I know you're curious because at this price point, if it even paints halfway decent, it might be worth the buy. I'm going to start just by doing some dots, larger to small, and then we'll do the same with lines. We'll do some larger ones, and then I'll work my way down to some smaller ones. See how fine of a detail I can do. I was pleasantly surprised at how fine these lines can get.
You can pull a line. It's a little more jagged, but it does pull the line. So you could probably do pretty fine detail with this if you wanted.
I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, check out some of these videos.